Today's class is on the supplication. It's a short supplication to Padmasambhava. And beforehand, I would like to make a quick announcement that is about the study of different sanghas in different places. Compared to the previous time, I consider nowadays the management of the local sanghas are rather much more formal than it used to be. In fact, to dedicate in study is difficult compared to not studying. And contemplation and practice is definitely more difficult than not practice and not contemplate. It's more relaxing to not do anything, isn't it? But now we've already encountered such wonderful Dharma. If we don't engage our time and energy in studying, then it is such a pity. To gain the essence of the Dharma, you have to study and contemplate and practice. I think majority of you understand it from a theoretical point of view. In fact, I have to point out that the studying and contemplation and practice in the urban areas are rather quite are not as diligent, especially when you compare to the great masters in the past. And nowadays over here, the practitioners would dedicate lots of time in practice and in their listening. So compared to the past master and compared to our practitioners over here, the practitioners in urban areas, I think you really don't spend that much time. Therefore, I really wish that you could persist. And once you could persist in the studying, contemplation, and practice, then you will be able to gain benefit. And once you gain benefit, you can then transfer such benefit to all the other sentient beings as well. You can influence others with such benefit that you receive from the Dharma. Therefore, I ask you not to interrupt your studying practice and contemplation, to practice consistently. Lots of our volunteer groups, I really want to extend you my appreciation to you, because I know at the same time of your own studying, contemplation, and practice, you have to then take up the responsibility of doing the management work. What is propagating Dharma and benefiting sentient beings? In fact, it is to take up responsibilities. If none of you want to take up responsibilities, then who can take up the responsibilities of benefiting others and propagate Dharma? We don't really have particular job description saying that he is supposed to do the job of propagating Dharma, and that person is supposed to take up the responsibility of benefiting sentient beings, and you have nothing to do with it. It is not like that at all. In fact, the lineage masters shared the Dharma teachings to everyone equally without any bias. Therefore, we all carry such responsibility of spreading the Dharma. So, within your capability, within your own, according to your own ability, then you should take up the certain responsibility to propagate the Dharma and benefit others. I've met a few of the volunteers who volunteer to serve the Sangha. In fact, I myself I'm really happy to see that they've spent so much energy in thinking how to propagate the Dharma, in thinking how to benefit others, in thinking how to build the centers in different places, instead of only thinking about their own afflictions, instead of only thinking about their own benefits. It's not like that at all. I think through their speech and through their attitude, I can tell what their intentions are. So you can really judge a book by its cover in that case. And I really encourage such Sangha members. Do not think about retire after 1 or 2 terms of a volunteer to serve others. Because when I look at myself, I am really at the time to retire from my post. Lots of people, after reaching certain age, they feel that after retirement they should then move to Chengdu or cities like such where there are lots of leisure activities, and they just don't want to do anything else except to just relax for the rest of their lives. When you have the ability to consistently provide service to the Sangha, then you should persist in such a way, because you never know how causes and conditions could change through time. But as long as such condition permits, then you should continuously to provide such service to the others. But anyway, I am trying to say is that do not be so selfish. As yesterday we talked about, in any kind of a service, you should then be selfless, and you should give rise to this bodhicitta, the Mahayana, awakened heart. Because without such a bodhicitta, without such aspiring bodhicitta, you cannot call yourself as a Mahayana practitioner. So, for the ones who are studying, contemplating, practicing, do not give up halfway. Please continuously to do whatever you're doing. For the volunteers whose main object and main aspiration is to benefit others and provide service to the Sangha, then I call upon you to then continuously to serve the Sangha. Maybe some of you have taken a year or 2 as rest, and then that's good enough. Why don't you come back to your post and continuously to serve the Sangha? Let's look at Manjushri. He never took any break in between. If you have the support from, if you have the human resources, if you have resources for finance support, then you can build the appropriate platforms to serve the Sangha. And for the management, I really hope that you do not be too strict. Some of the management, they're too strict. There are management who don't have any principle, and there are management who have too much principle and not flexible at all. Neither of those extremes are beneficial to others. So nowadays, we need to have both the sense of human warmth as well as regulations. So two of these aspects should be combined in our Sangha, in our community. In the management, I hope that you could treat everyone equally and have some flexibility. Also, I really think that if some of you have the kind of authoritative power, do not then take advantage of such power. There are people nowadays who have too much of the habitual patterns from this world, and once they have the power in their hands, then they would take advantage of such power and abuse it. Even if in this lifetime you don't get punished it will be a bad seed in your karma.
今天呢，我们讲到的是什么呢？就是莲花生大师的这个祈祷文啊，就是这个祈祷文呢，实际上是那个第20灯柱法王啊，就是第20灯柱法王。他应该最早的时候就是造的，那么这个以前的那个我最早的时候好像在尼泊尔吧，就是见过这个祈祷文，当时心里特别欢喜，但是呢也。没有得到真正的这个传承啊，就所以我今天藏文的不念传承，因为我没有传承，没有传承的话，给大家念也没办法。但是我想我们一起来这个就是学习一下它的内容，然后你们自己愿意念诵的话呢，就是也可以加在自己的课诵里面，也可以念诵，也不强迫啊，就是因为我们祈祷莲花生大师的有一些这个出章文呐，就是也有很多的。还有呢，我们那个七句祈祷文呐，就是念莲花生大师的信主啊，就是这些都是很好的一种修念式的这种法啊，就是也是非常好的，就是所以呢，我只是这个字面上呢，就是给大家就是做一个简单的就是介绍吧，就是介绍之后呢，我们就是今天这堂课的这个听众的话呢，应该对莲花生大师有一个就是全面的这个认识，就是这一点就是很重要的。为什么这样呢？因为
Why is it considered so? Because Padmasambhava, he is considered as the second Buddha in this dark age. So if we wholeheartedly supplicate to him, then we will be able to receive the unsurpassable blessing and empowerment. I myself consider that nowadays in this society we encounter all different kind of obstacles and difficulties and hardship, and if we supplicate to Padmasambhava, then we will be able to receive blessings from him. So this is extremely important. That is why we should then supplicate to Padmasambhava. When we supplicate to Padmasambhava, also we can bring great happiness and peace to this world. This is without a question. Of course, you may feel that this is just stated in your religion. In fact, that is not true, because without the blessing of Padmasambhava, then Tibetan Buddhism cannot be maintained all the way till now. We won't even have Tibetan Buddhism. Even for those of you who study history, you probably know that. And lots of fifth instructions of Vajrayana that's taught by Padmasambhava is of great benefit to people who have certain realization of their mind, or who have attained a certain realization. It's just as you know the sweetness of the sugar. You can taste it on your own. Therefore, in the West and in the East, in different places, in different areas, different countries, people can feel the blessings from Padmasambhava. And that is why people have lots of faith towards Padmasambhava. Without faith, it is a question whether you can get the blessing or not. Over here, today's teaching is taught by Dudrum Rinpoche. I think back in 1976, some journalists asked Dudrum Rinpoche, and they asked about Mahaati, and Dudrum Rinpoche replied, saying that the person who then started the lineage of Mahaati and the person who then continued this lineage is the most important person in this lineage is Padmasambhava, and he is no other than the second. He is no other than the Buddha. He is then renowned as the second Buddha. In our dark age, the supplication towards Padmasambhava and the practice of Padmasambhava is extremely important. Dudrum Rinpoche, all the way since he was young, he had great faith towards Padmasambhava. All the way since 5 or 6 years old, Dudrum Rinpoche started to review lots of tur, or the hidden treasure that's hidden by Padmasambhava. So, I think when it comes to recognize the nature of your mind, or to gain the pith instruction of recognize the nature of your mind, then the teachings from Padmasambhava is crucial. In mainland, the Han Buddhism talks about Avalokiteshvara, and for people who do not then take refuge in Avalokiteshvara, they didn't really know about it. And then once you take refuge, and once you get to know more of the merit of Avalokiteshvara, then you will start to supplicate. Similarly, Padmasambhava is the symbol, or one of the most important figure in Tibetan Buddhism. Therefore, this is extremely important for you to practice and supplicate to Padmasambhava. So now let's look at this supplication. At the beginning, it says that Emaho. Emaho means, oh, how wondrous. And then the first stanza says that, O Guru Rinpoche, you are compassion of all the Buddhas in one, our only unfailing and constant refuge. You are unfailing refuge place for all sentient beings. This is you, Guru Rinpoche. And then as disciples of the Buddha, or people even without any religion, any faith, quickly turn your love and attention to your sons and daughters and their prayers. Inspire us with your blessings, empowerments, the 4 empowerments and the 4 cities, here and now, swiftly. So this is supplicate to Padmasambhava. In fact, we really need to have such kind of blessings, such kind of empowerments. In different countries, I think people really want to receive great empowerments. I heard in Korea, there are different centers that gives Padmasambhava empowerments every year. In New York, in United States, some of the Nyingmapa centers, they would also offer the empowerments of Padmasambhava. When Pansuk Rinpoche went to United States, he also gave the empowerments of Padmasambhava. There are the extensive as well as brief empowerments of Padmasambhava. There are different types of empowerments of Padmasambhava. There are then empowerments that you receive from the gurus, or there are empowerments that you could receive simply by then contemplate and visualize on yourself. And then you'll be able to receive cities from Padmasambhava. So you can use a 7-line prayer or any supplications and supplicate Padmasambhava, and then in such a way you'll be able to receive the blessings, the genuine blessings, empowerments, and siddhis from Padmasambhava. The next one, it says that although we know the example of your life, described in biographies, in both Chinese, in both Mandarin, both Tibetan and English language, in Pema Lamba, Dichin Lamba, lots of the turtle who reviewed the biographies of the story of Padmasambhava. And in different biographies, the merits of Padmasambhava is completely unfathomable. And such Padmasambhava, to the sentient beings in this dark age, his kindness surpasses all the Buddhas, because the Buddha's teachings, there are the previous Buddha's teachings which already then dissipate in this world and no longer available in this world, but the teachings of Padmasambhava are still here, and there are manifestation of Padmasambhava as well, just as Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche's teaching, where he then quoted from Dorjigten's teaching or writing, where it says that the manifestation of Padmasambhava is the Nirmanakaya, and the manifestation of Padmasambhava is Phuntsok Rinpoche. I personally feel this is not just in words or lip service. It's not like that. There are the disciples of Phuntsok Rinpoche, or even non-disciples. I think you can still supplicate in such a way. Let's just contemplate in such a way that Phuntsok Rinpoche passed away for 16 years already by this winter, and his teaching not only did not dissipate, but it is more propagated and more prosperous than ever before. Phuntsok Rinpoche never declared that he is the manifestation of Padmasambhava, but there are masters who've already received the blessings of Padmasambhava in their body, mind, and speech, and their propagation of Dharma, their activity of propagation is extremely powerful, and it is only because that they received the full blessing of Padmasambhava. And then the next one, it says that yet in happy times, Guru, we do not remember you, and our prayers are nothing more than so many meaningless words than only paying lip service. In fact, I think people are just like that. When you are in happy time, you do not remember. You do not remember the Guru, you do not remember the Bodhisattvas and the Buddhas when you're having some pleasant time. And when you're suffering, then that's when you started to look around and started to search for a place to take refuge. Just as there are people, when they're happy, they would never really think of their Guru at all. And they would only think of the teacher when they're suffering, when they're in depression, when there's some family difficulties that they can't get through, and then at that time they would come to the teacher with tears in their eyes and started to call the teacher or calling Padmasambhava, but do not remember supplication at all when they are having happy times. So as disciples, we really need to then remember to make supplication at all times. But over here, Dorjigten Rinpoche is really being very humble by saying that his supplication and prayers are no other than lip service. This is really just his way of showing, this is really just his humble words. I've read lots of Dudron Rinpoche's teaching, including his dohas, including his teachings and writings and so on. In fact, I have lots of faith, including the first Dudron Rinpoche. The other day, I was flipping through the biography of Dudron Rinpoche, and I realized that, and then I noticed that before each of the teaching, he would then make prostration to Guru Rinpoche. So I think for each of you, our Sangha over here, if you ever get opportunity to teach the Dharma, then you should first to supplicate, to prostrate to Padmasambhava. In fact, the blessings of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are all pervasive. Whether you receive it or not, it is then all dependent on your own faith. It is the same to the faith towards your Guru. If you do not treat your Guru with great respect, then how can you then expect the blessings of this Guru to immerse in your own mind? But if you supplicate to the Guru that you revere, that you admire, that you treat with great respect, then such blessing from the Guru will naturally be infused into your mind, into your mind stream. The next one, next verse, it says that now when the dark ages intensifying decay oppresses us, and unwanted suffering strikes us without warning, different unwanted suffering, unwanted afflictions, and so on. And then we remember you, our protector. So at that time, from the bottom of your heart, you should remember Padmasambhava and cry out for help with lots of longing, asking for the blessings. The sentient beings in the dark age, when we are suffering from different kinds of afflictions or any obstacles, then we should supplicate with great longing to Padmasambhava. The verse that I just recited, it says that the darker the night, the brighter the moon, the darker the age, the stronger the blessing. So that is the strongest blessings that we can receive from Padmasambhava in this dark age. And his blessing would be ever swift and ever strong. Therefore, we should supplicate to Padmasambhava. Mipa Rinpoche once said, I think the other day I wanted to post it in my Weibo as a collection of the teaching, where it says that even by thinking of Padmasambhava, the clouds of blessings will gather, and you who showed great kindness to the Tibetan plateau, you are the one who is the root teacher of all. I myself, when I prostrate to you, I feel great gratitude, especially when I think of the ones who do not have anyone to rely upon, who do not have a deity to practice, who do not have a great guru to rely upon. Then I myself feel really grateful to have you as the one who I can rely upon. So nowadays, in such a crowd of people, not many people have a place or a person to rely on. And not only that, they have great wrong views and they're only causing themselves afflictions. But I myself, since I've met you, I am so grateful that I've met you, because now I have a place to rely on. So that's the Vajra teaching, Vajra speech of Mipa Rinpoche. Out of all the things that you can have, the most supreme that you could have is Padmasambhava as your refuge place. Therefore, through different languages, different teachings, if we can then make auspicious connection to Padmasambhava, and if you can make such admiration, such kind of give a rise to this admiration to Padmasambhava, that will be wonderful. If you can't find this sense of admiration, then it's very difficult to give rise to such kind of faith, and it's very difficult to receive the blessings from them either, from him either. Just as nowadays people have lots of celebrities that they revere, and they have different idol they worship, but if you do not have such a feeling, then you won't be able to then abide in the non-dual state of realization, and you won't be able to then give rise to the kind of faith that never retrogress. Therefore, during our supplication, I think we should have great devotion and great faith, wholeheartedly supplicate to Padmasambhava. Just as Mipa Rinpoche said that only thinking about Padmasambhava you'll be able to receive the thick clouds of blessings. So that is why I'm teaching the supplication to Padmasambhavas. And now it talks about the outer, inner, and secret obstacles. In terms of outer, the outer obstacles such as earthquake, infernos, hurricane, drought, flood, and so on. All of these kind of natural disasters, all of these kind of natural disasters that can be removed through the power of Padmasambhava. And the inner obstacle is more related to our body, such as heat, cold, wind, bile, and phlegm, including the 84,000 kinds of sickness. So all of these physical obstacles will then also be removed. And then the secret obstacles, such as the desire, aggression, ignorance, arrogance, doubt, and then hope and fear. Hope and fear are the demonic forces. All of these secret obstacles, mind disturbances, will also be banished into space by supplicating Padmasambhava. So the inner, outer, and secret obstacles, after supplicating to Padmasambhava, will be able to be banished into space solely by the blessings of Padmasambhava. In fact, in our life, we have different kinds of obstacles and hardships that would come up. Just as the 7 points of mind training, where it says that when we encounter such obstacles, we can then practice bodhicitta. That's one way of working with it. And the other way of working with it is through supplication to Padmasambhava. In Tibetan Buddhism, in the chanting, there are different kind of chantings of Padmasambhava, including the 7-line prayer and the prayer of dispelling outer, inner, and secret obstacles. There's a supplication. There's a supplication where it says that may the outer obstacles be dispelled to the out, and may the inner obstacles be dispelled to the inner, and may the secret obstacles be banished in the secret as well. When Paul's Rinpoche went to India back in 1990, he went to a Gelupa's monastery, and he then gave a teaching on the three paths taught by Gelupa. And then over there, the monastics requested Paul's Rinpoche to give a oral transmission of supplication of Padmasambhava. At that time, Paul's Rinpoche couldn't read through his eyes. He had some eye problem at that time, and other than the things that he could remember, he had to listen through a recording. At that time, we use cassettes, and nowadays it's rather quite difficult when we think about it. But to him, it was okay. It was rather seems quite easy. And Paul's Rinpoche said, I think your recording is okay. Maybe let's ask Khenpo Chopo to then record it for me. He actually walked all the way through Gandhi's mountains, and Paul's Rinpoche asked him to record the supplication for him so that he could give the oral transmission. I think Khenpo Chopo didn't really have such experience of making recording, and in the beginning of the supplication, he was just mumbling, and at the end of each of the stanza, where it says that the inner obstacles be dispelled to the inner and so on, he started to chant really clear and loud. And then Paul's Rinpoche, when he was then listening to the recording from the cassettes of Khenpo Chopo's recording, and Paul's Rinpoche didn't have any choice other than mumbling as the same as he did. And after giving the oral transmission, he was quite upset, and he said, I don't like your recording at all. I myself at that time felt, I was quite happy about it. And then I didn't lose my job, so I continuously to record for Paul's Rinpoche. Khenpo Chopo, he was quite, he did a great favor for me. In fact, in Minjuling requested Khenpo to teach in Minjuling Monastery for 3 years and teach the 5 great treatises. Paul's Rinpoche at that time, before we depart to India, asked me if I want to do that. And after arrived in India, I thought I didn't want to stay there for 3 years. And at that time, the sister of Paul's Rinpoche also agreed with me, and she said, we came here all together. It is of the best if we can go back all together as well. And then Paul's Rinpoche said, well, since I've already agreed to this, then it would be quite difficult for me to change my words. So can you think of some other way to work around it? And then I convinced the Khenpo Chopo to then stay there for 3 years. And he said, after convincing him, he agreed. So he stayed over there for 3 years for me, or instead of me. And Khenpo Rinpoche said that since we're going to have more Chinese disciples in Larongar, therefore it would be the best if you could then come back. So I did come back to Larongar after the trip. I think after a few years, after he stayed in Minzhuling for a few years and then went out to different places, he then passed away. He's really tall. He's really tall, and he has really loud voice. Even if you teach in one side of the mountain, the other side of the mountain could hear it as well. Anyhow, over here when it talks about the outer, inner, and the sacred obstacles, that reminds me of this story. There was a story, in fact, that was told by Khenpo Rinpoche. There was Achi Sangye. There was a monk or a practitioner whose name is Achi Sangye. And then he went to Dudrum Rinpoche saying that he had terma. And Dudrum Rinpoche said, no, it's not terma. Then he went to a different guru, and the other guru said, no, it's not terma either. And then Achi Sangye went to Jamyam Khyentse Jamyam Khyentse Wangpo, and then Jamyam Khyentse Wangpo said, sure, I can then certify your terma if you can finish 10 million times of Pamasambhava mantra first. And then after chanting the mantra for a long period of time, he then dreamt of, he then had a vision that a monk fell from the ground, fall to a ground, and then immediately the demon of arrogance left his consciousness, and then he became a genuine practitioner. Therefore, sometimes even if you feel that you had some kind of a good vision, but maybe that's a kind of demonic vision, and you should chant Pamasambhava's mantra to dispel it instead. When Pamasambhava went to the continent of Rakshas, Chusum Ditsen then requested 13 golden dharmas from Pamasambhava, where Pamasambhava then manifested into different forms, such as Pamasambhava as a medicine Buddha, as Jambala, as wrathful Buddha, as the one who dispelled obstacles, and so on. There are 13 of them. So now let's continue to look at the first one, because over here it also stated 13 kinds of qualities or obstacles that Pamasambhava dispels. Over here, the first one talks about when immense suffering engulfs the world and beings, turn it into happiness and peace, O Guru Rinpoche. In fact, peace is quite important. Peace in the country, peace in society, peace in family, peace in your workplace. If a family is constantly in war with one another, let it be cold war or hot war with one another, it is really not very comfortable for anyone. In fact, over here, peace is quite important. When I went to Bhutan, I felt that the Bhutanese, they had a great devotion and great faith towards Pamasambhava compared to any other places. And I think compared to many countries, Bhutan is a really peaceful country. And you can feel that Pamasambhava really blessed this place. In Bhutan, there is a tiger's lair, or taksang. That is one of the most important pilgrimage sites in Bhutan. Taksang is on a cliff. Last time when we studied Dorje Cholo, the Dorje Cholo sadhana, then in fact that was the sadhana or the terma that was then reviewed from reviewed from Taksang as well. From the lower part, when you look up, you can see the top mountain is a trollo form as well. You can see the two eyes. It's a wrathful form, almost like Hierogriva. And in Taksang, around Taksang, there was a place that Phuntsok Rinpoche stayed, Olatang. That's a hotel, Olatang. This is the hut that Phuntsok Rinpoche stayed. In fact, we stayed over here for a few days. Whenever you have the opportunity, whenever you go to this, go here, then you can then also take a look at it. I think the room number is 430. And I heard that the Bhutanese also know that this is a place that Phuntsok Rinpoche stayed. This is a little cottage that Phuntsok Rinpoche stayed. Whenever I have opportunity, I would love to go back again. And the most important to go back, the most important thing that Bhutanese people adapted that make their society rather peaceful and really happy is through the blessings of Padmasambhava. And then the next one, it says that when weapons of war threaten the whole face of the earth, turn back the armies that plunge this age into turmoil, O Guru Rinpoche. In fact, in our world, it is quite threatening. There is the economic war, finance war, trade war, currency war, and all kinds of war, especially weaponry war. Some of the war are not really conflicts with the use of weapon, but still they're quite threatening and quite unassuring. But in such an insecure society, if you could supplicate to Padmasambhava, it could also contribute to the cause of peace to the world. When we look at this world, there are different kinds of war in different countries. Nowadays, there are, I think in this year, there are about 195 sovereign countries. The countries, whether they're neighbors or they have some geopolitical conflicts, if there are such conflicts, then you can supplicate to Padmasambhava, and the blessings as well as the dependent origination is quite unfathomable, and it could contribute the cause of peace to others. The next one, the third one, it says that when obscuration or nightmares, malevolent spirits, diseases, and epidemics plague us, wipe out all kinds of sickness, O Guru Rinpoche. So over here, obscurations is rather as the nightmares that when there are malevolent spirits are causing you to have such nightmares. It's really, it's quite scary. There are epidemics nowadays as well. Epidemics in Brazil, epidemics of Ebola, and epidemics that's happening through the spread of mosquito in the Philippines. In fact, Ebola is one of the most scary diseases. It could really rotten your organs, so to speak, and it's quite malicious. Sometimes when Sometimes I also have nightmares, and when I wake up from such nightmare, I would then get up and make supplication. And it depends on who I remember. If I remember Tara, if I remember Padmasambhava, if I remember the Guru, then it's usually I would get up and I would kind of make supplication in in the state of half asleep. This is quite important. The fourth one is that when resources fail in environment and amongst beings, bringing deprivation and suffering, review abundant food and riches, O Guru Rinpoche. In fact, the abundant wisdom, abundant term, do not use up all of your resources right away. In fact, through the from the aspect of how the resources, how the merits of the different kind of resources that you can gain is quite impermanent. In Tang Dynasty, during Tang Dynasty, China was one of the most prosperous country in terms of the culture, in terms of the Dharma, in terms of the wealth. And then during the 16th century, then Netherlands started to develop and getting more prosperous, and then France, and then England, and now United States. Globally speaking, after Second World War, United States started to get much more wealthy and more influential in this world. But you never know how things could change, because causes and conditions could dissipate, and the resources and merits could change because of impermanence. And therefore I ask you to then contemplate upon impermanence. Many people probably are influenced by the trade war between United States and China. So you should then supplicate to Padmasambhava. But nowadays we make so much killing of the animals, and it's very difficult to then turn the wheel of karma in terms of our merits. For those of you who are in this small valley, then you probably feel this is still very far from you. But if you have any of time to just look at this world, you would be able to see how this world then change and transform, and impermanence plays a great role in this world. In different countries, in different countries, in different sentient beings, please grant your blessings, Padmasambhava. Please grant them wealth so that they don't be too deprivated from any kind of material providing. Also, don't let them get too rich either. So we should then supplicate to Padmasambhava genuinely. The fifth one then says that when the time comes to help beings with wealth of hidden teaching and sacred objects, hand over the Father's treasure to his heirs, O Guru Rinpoche. The teachings from your mind, the teachings, the wealth of the hidden teachings, please hand over, just as how the Father's treasure is passed down to his son or to his heirs. Therefore, so that the generations after you will be able to receive the teaching, and then the generation could pass down the teachings generation to generation. There are people nowadays, they feel that receiving Dharma teaching is not that important, or they don't feel oral transmission or the lineage teachings is not important. That is a wrong attitude. you should really invest your time to meticulously study how the lineage teachers, previous lineage teachers, then explain certain verses, how then they then interpret certain texts. That's the teaching that passed down from lineage masters, and that has blessings in it. The sixth one says that when roaming through mountains, valleys, deserted places, and hidden lands, lead us on the right path, or Guru Rinpoche. Nowadays, people would go to go on trips. People would save up to then save up in the fall so that they can make a trip in the winter. And like the Chinese, they would save up and don't really want to spend the money on food, on clothing, on traveling, and so on. Anyhow, when you're roaming about or taking your trips, in fact, over here, more importantly, is that when you're doing any retreats in some of the remote areas, you should then first supplicate to Guru Rinpoche as well as the Dharmapalas or Dharma protectors, so that they can protect you. Guru Rinpoche can be called as the Guru, and can be called the Dharmapala, or can be called the Dakini, or the sources of the blessings of sources of energy of blessing, sources of energy of protection, sources of energy of activity, of spontaneous activity. So Guru Rinpoche is really the embodiment of all three. In the book of Living and Dying, Tibetan book of Living and Dying, it says that in any of the daily activities, if you could supplicate Pamasambhava, even any small actions, if you could supplicate to Pamasambhava, then you will be able to receive the blessings, and then you'll be able to accomplish without any obstacles. For myself, maybe it's because of my family, because of my neighbors, because of the circumstances that I grew up in. I had great faith towards Pamasambhava ever since I was at a very young age. During my child play, I would then put some rocks over there, and I would use the sand and soil and pretend that those are the offerings that I make to Pamasambhava. When I was young, I think that the children at that time, they also perceive Pamasambhava as a father, as mother. And whenever I look at the paintings or sculptures, images of Pamasambhava, I have great faith towards those. In some centers or some corporations, even some companies, they would buy those really beautiful sculptures or rupas of Pamasambhava and place those in their companies. I said earlier that if you were to wear a pendant, it is best that you wear a pendant of Pamasambhava instead of the pendants of the photos of your different gurus, as if you're wearing a necklace of skulls. Instead of doing that, it is the best to wear the pictures of Pamasambhava or Shakyamuni. once you wear those kind of, you wear this kind of pendants, then you could have the power to dispel the obstacles, and it would make the heretics as well as non-humans not dare to harm you at all. The next one then says, when vicious animals such as bears, such as tigers and lions and leopards and so on to attack us. In the city, I understand that it's not like the animals would roam about in the streets, but there are people who then get into the zoo and got attacked by the vicious wild animals. So bears and the snakes, especially poisonous snakes. In the biography of Guru Rinpoche, he also mentioned that in India and different places they have lots of those poisonous bugs. So by chanting Padmasambhava, then you drive off these ferocious creatures and give rise to bodhicitta by supplicating Guru Rinpoche. The next one, the eighth one, says, when the four elements become unbalanced and threaten us into catastrophe, harmonize the elements into their natural state, O Guru Rinpoche. So when the wind enters into dissolves into wind, when water dissolves into water, earth dissolves into earth, and fire dissolves into fire, the four great elements become unbalanced, and at the time of death, then you should supplicate to Padmasambhava so that you see the natural state of your mind. The ninth one says, when thugs, bandits, and robbers assault us, there are people who kidnap children and human traffic children in China, and they are groups. And thugs and bandits, they're robbers, many of them. In United States, recently there was 87 gun crimes that happened in one day, and 29 people died in one day. In Canada, they have Canada Goose. When you wear Canada Goose as the jacket, and there are robbers who would rob their Canada Goose, the jacket. In Tibetan Plateau, whenever you wear the golden earring, then there would be robbers who would grab the golden earring off your ear. Not only you would lose your earring, you probably lose part of your earlobe as well, and leave a beautiful scar maybe. And in the cities, there are motorcycle riders, and they would grab other people's purse on the streets. So such kind of difficulties and such kind of all different kinds of things like this happen in society. But there are things that happen because of the karma has already fully ripened. Therefore, in a short period of time, you won't be able to do much about it. But at least if you supplicate to Guru Rinpoche, then you'll be able to be protected in some ways. I feel that until now I'm still alive, I'm still giving teachings, and it is all because of the blessings from the three jewels and from the three roots from Guru Rinpoche. And then the 10th one says that when armed aggressor and killers torment us, enclose us in Vajra tent, O Guru Rinpoche. Not only dispel the obstacles, also enclose us to protect us in this Vajra tent so that we can be protected by you from the external aggressors. The 11th one says that when life when this lifespan is exhausted and death comes, lead us to the realm of great bliss. So Guru Rinpoche, in the exoteric teachings where it says that you should then supplicate Amitabha, then you can be reborn in Pure Land. In fact, in the teaching of Pamasambhava, in the Chandrayana teachings, it also talks about to supplicate Pamasambhava, then you can be reborn in Pure Land too. We will eventually die. And at the time of death, we should supplicate to Pamasambhava, who is no other than Amitabha. When you understand the biography and stories of Pamasambhava, you'll be able to see that Pamasambhava is the manifestation of Amitabha, and they are no other than each other. They are of one taste, of one nature. To some people who have a great faith towards Pamasambhava, then they would appear as the form as Pamasambhava, and to people who have great faith towards Amitabha or Chiranzig, then the different forms would appear in front of you in such a way. Then the next one, it says that the 12th one, when the illusory experiences of the bardo arises as suffering, let the delusion be self-liberated, O Guru Rinpoche. At the time of death or in the bardo, there are lots of scary forms would appear, including really extremely loud thundering, extremely loud sound, and lots of lights and so on. And when such kind of illusory experiences appearing in front of you, if you've heard the teachings of liberation upon hearing and received the teachings of Bardo teachings, then you'll be able to perceive Pamasambhava. You'll be able to perceive the 100 wrathful and peaceful deities. And at that time, all the delusions will be self-liberated. So lots of the suffering and the terror that you may feel at the time during Bardo, then you should then remember that Pamasambhava is no other than your own mind, and is no other than your own Guru's mind, and the Amitabha's mind is no other than your mind, and so on. And then at that moment, all the terror and all the suffering, the pain you feel at the moment at Bardo will disappear right away, and you'll be able to see the Pure Land right in that moment. So in the during those kind of illusory experiences during Bardo, supplicating to Guru Rinpoche is extremely important. Then the 13th one, it says, when we stray into the cycle of karmic existence, show us the path to liberation, O Guru Rinpoche. Please show us the path to liberation when we are so drawn to the cycle of karmic existence. When Guru Rinpoche's blessings swiftly enter into our mind stream, we will be able to right away give rise to the right view, to the bodhicitta, and so on. And without the blessing of Guru Rinpoche, just simply by our own strength, we won't be able to fight over such strength and such karmic force, and will then, without knowing it, get entrapped in the cycle of karmic existence again. So that is why we really need Guru. We really need Guru Rinpoche to then protect us and help us to different sentient beings. This is extremely important. And that is why we need to supplicate with great devotion. The last one, it says that the last one is more as a general statement. It says, or summarization. It says that throughout this life, the next and the bardo state, when we have no one to rely on but you, O Guru Rinpoche. In fact, this is exactly what we should do. Let it be healthy or not, during life or death, during life or bardo, during happiness, during sadness, during illness, or during health. In health and in illness, in beauty and in ugly, in good mood, in bad mood, in any kind of situations, they are all. All of those experiences are the Guru Rinpoche's blessings. When I feel suffering, then I feel this is the blessing from Padmasambhava. When I'm happy, this is the blessing from Padmasambhava. The sound is Padmasambhava's Vajra speech. What I see is the vision of, is the body of Padmasambhava. Whatever I think is no other than the form of Padmasambhava. In fact, the teaching of Tantra Pith instructions are quite abundant, and the Tantrayana practitioners will be able to view everything in life as blessings and as a cause to generate great faith. The blessings, without the blessings from lineage masters, from the Guru Rinpoche, then the Dharma could easily be turned into poison, and with the blessing, the demons could be turned into celestial beings, and the poison could be turned into the medicine of Dharma. That is the importance of the blessings from the lineage masters and Guru Rinpoche. And then it says, in short, rest your lotus feet in our hearts. Your devoted followers, always, without ever separating, completely purify the suffering of impurity and delusion, and inspire us with your blessing to reach the stronghold of everlasting happiness and peace. That is Buddhahood. So the last stanza is then an aspiration, and this supplication at the end, it says that at the time, during the time when I had inner, outer, and outer obstacles, when it was then harming me, then Jigdro Yeshe Dorje, that is Kyabje Dodrum Rinpoche, for the peace and happiness for the world, at a time when we're all afflicted, both physically and mentally, by all kinds of outer and inner circumstances. For anyone who encounters this prayer, may it serve as the cause to eliminate all the outer and inner obstacles that they face and accomplish their wishes and aspirations just as they desire. Therefore, for all of of the audience in here and online, may this prayer could bring you the blessings so that it could dispel the obstacles in this world, in this society, in your family, in your work. And that is very necessary because nowadays in this world we have lots of obstacles. On one hand, I think it's quite important to view the obstacles as the way to then turn that onto the path of the practice. I'll give you the oral transmission of Padmasambhava's mantra. If you can, I hope each one of you could chant for this world. This year, this world is in a very special situation. The circumstances are quite special and different. Therefore, for the peace of this world, if you have time, I really hope that you could chant 10,000 Padmasambhava mantra. Of course, you can chant 100,000 and a million Padmasambhava mantra. This is really wonderful if you could do so. And through such practice, through such genuine supplication, then we hope to bring peace and happiness into this world. And if you have statue of Padmasambhava, then I really hope that you could wear it on your neck or on your wrist, or you could keep it on your cell phone. Keep the photos of Padmasambhava in your cell phone. Especially this is your faith, where your faith is. Just as nowadays, if you are interested or if you really like a certain celebrity, you would keep the celebrity's picture on the cell phone. So that could be considered as a way of keep Padmasambhava close to you. Also, I call upon you to propagate the teaching of Padmasambhava. That would be also very meaningful to this world and to others. And then I will give you the oral transmission of Padmasambhava mantra and the supplication.
Umahum badrun guru bamma surdum, umahum badrun guru bamma surdum, ahum badrun guru bamma surdum, umahum badrun guru. Umahum badrun guru bamma surdum, umahum badrun guru bamma surdum, umahum badrun guru bamma surdum, umahum badrun guru bamma surdum. Umahum badrun guru bamma surdum, umahum badrun guru bamma surdum, umahum badrun guru bamma surdum, umahum badrun guru bamma. Umahum badrun guru bamma surdum, 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 umahum. Umahum badrun guru bamma surdum, umahum badrun guru bamma surdum, umahum badrun guru bamma surdum, umahum badrun guru. Umahum badrun guru bamma surdum, 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 umahum badrun guru bamma. Umahum badrun guru bamma surdum, 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 umahum badrun guru bamma. Ahum badrun guru bamma surdum, umahum 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 badrun guru. Umahum badrun guru bamma surdum, umahum badrun guru bamma surdum, umahum badrun guru bamma surdum, umahum badrun guru bamma. Ahum badrun guru bamma surdum, ahum badrun guru bamma surdum, ahum badrun guru bamma. Ahum badrun guru bamma surdum, ahum badrun guru bamma surdum, ahum badrun guru bamma surdum, ahum badrun guru bamma. Ahum badrun guru bamma surdum, ahum badrun guru bamma surdum, ahum badrun guru bamma surdum, ahum badrun guru. Umahum badrun guru bamma surdum, kela tajang sura tabe. Daso kanda nebe sajo sa nadan orbon tatsu jiwa Chudan trashin beran zat